Hey, everybody. I'm engagement editor John A. Torres, and I feel so presidential after that opening, which I love so much. Thank you, Rob Landers, for putting that together. And welcome, everybody, to our primary night coverage here at Florida Today. I hope you all got a chance to go out today and vote. Remember, it's not a privilege, it's duty. And other countries, well, go to war just for the right to vote. So anyway, it was a hot and steamy day here in Central Florida in Brevard County to vote. And there were several local key races that we're going to be keeping an eye on as the polls just closed mere seconds ago. Perhaps the biggest prize at stake is the Democratic primary between Nikki Fried and Charlie Crist, with the winner facing off against the governor, Ron DeSantis, on November 8th, as well as a very important Democratic primary with challengers Joanne Terry and Danelle Dodge, with the winner running for Congress against longtime Brevard Congressman Bill Posey. But we'll be keeping an eye on the local races here tonight because these are the ones that really affect you the most, the school board and the county commission mainly. Speaking of the county commission, District 4 tonight has 4 Republicans facing off the primary to replace the termed out fifth. The race, for all intents and purposes, will be decided tonight, although the winner has to face off against write-in candidate Joseph Aiello. But he has said that he has no intention of running and only entered the race to close out the primary to only include Republican voters. District 4 covers Satellite Beach, Indian Harbor Beach, Rockledge, Melbourne, Viera, Palm Shores. The other big race in the county commission is District 2, which contains the towns of Cocoa, Rockledge, Merritt Island, Cape Canaveral, and Cocoa Beach. There are also 4 GOP candidates vying for the spot there that was vacant by Brian Lober, who resigned abruptly earlier this year. The winner there will face NPA candidate Dontavius Tademea Smith in November. But a lot of the big battles in this will be taking place on the school board races tonight. There are 3 school board seats up for grabs in these 9 nonpartisan primaries in our districts 1, 2, and 5. Now, the only one that may not be decided tonight is District 2, may go to a runoff with the top 2 candidates since the winner needs more than 50% outright in the primary, and they have more than 2 candidates in that race. There were also Democratic primaries for Florida Senate at District 8 and Republican primaries for Florida House Districts 30 and 34. Some nonpartisan races for judicial seats, which we will be talking about, and a few local city elections, the port, etc. The winners of the primaries, as I said, advance to the general election on November 8th. Hopefully, we'll be seeing some results trickle in pretty soon because the Brevard Supervisor of Elections Office and Lori Scott, they do a fantastic job, and we usually have some results almost immediately. But in the meantime, I'd like to bring in a man who truly has his pulse on Brevard County and the politics, has for many years, the man of the hour, Dave Berman. Hey, Dave, welcome. How you doing?
Thanks, John. Good to be here.
Great. Well, I really appreciate your time because I know that you're busy writing tonight and also editing copy. So I appreciate your analysis and expertise here tonight. I want to start, Dave, by talking about the 2 seats on the county commission. Could we actually really see a change in county politics and how things are done? What do you expect?
Well, I think right now there's 4 sitting commissioners, all Republicans, and the primaries today are all Republican candidates seeking those seats. As you mentioned, there's 1 NPA candidate that will be in the general election in District 2. And in District 4, there's only a write-in candidate who won't even be on the ballot in November. So the winner of the Republican primary there will take that seat in November. So we do have some initial results already have come in, actually, if you want me to run through a couple
please.
of those.
I'm looking at
so in District 2, which is a central Brevard district that runs from Rockledge to Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach, Tom Goodson is leading right now with over 42% of the vote. And these are just early returns from mail-in ballots and people who voted early in the on 10 days of early voting. So he's got 42%, and he's got a pretty big lead over the other candidates. Dave Nedstrom has about 25%. Chris Hasway has about 23%, and Joey Shawala has about 10%. So Tom Goodson, who used to be a state legislator and used to be a port commissioner, seems to have a pretty heavy lead right now. Again, these are very preliminary results, but some indication on how things may go if that holds up. And then
I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead.
I'll go through District 4, and then we could go back to the other things. Sure. So in District 4, which is a district that runs from Suntree and Vieira to Melbourne, kind of a central and southern district, Rob Feltner is leading with over 52%. And then Sandra Sullivan is currently in second place with 25%. Dave Armstrong is third place with 19%. And Margaret Sosek has about 3%. So again, it seems like the leader, Rob Feltner, has a pretty heavy lead now. He's a political consultant and used to work for the Brevard County Property Appraiser's Office. So he's been in politics for a long time in elected, not non-elected office, but working for an elected official and also consulting with other candidates who have run for office. And so these are two people that are heavily involved in politics in the past. So it's interesting, both of them have pretty sizable leads in the first batch of returns coming in.
Yeah, and if I'm wrong, Dave, please correct me, but they are also both backed by Sheriff Wayne Ivey. Isn't that right?
That is correct. Yes, they both were supported by the sheriff, who has had some considerable influence in past elections as far as endorsing candidates who have generally won their elections in the past.
And I was curious, Dave, in this in the race for District 2, I was interested to see how Chris Hadaway would do tonight, because he is one of three candidates locally here who alleged that Sheriff Ivey urged them to drop out of the race, and in some cases supposedly offered them jobs or some incentive to do so. Hadaway, Sean Overdorf in the school board, and prosecutor Kimberly Musselman running for judge were the other two. And Hadaway, he couldn't drop out, obviously, and he seemed to do well in a Republican straw poll earlier in the summer. And so right now, as you said, he is at about 23%. He's actually in third behind former Cocoa Beach Mayor Dave Nedstrom and the leader Tom Goodson, who, as you said, has about 43% so far. And all these votes, you said, Dave, are the mail-in votes and early voting, correct?
Right. These are the first batch that comes in that are counted by supervised elections. And these might not be all the mail-in and not all the early voting, but this is a sampling of that. The voting of people that voted actually at the polls today, those numbers won't come in till later. So this is only a small sample, but sometimes the initial numbers seem to hold up, especially when there's a big margin like there is in these two races.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that these two candidates who are leading are the ones that had a lot of money to spend on the campaign. They put out a lot of mailers, and especially including the last few weeks of the campaign. So by having a lot of money to spend.
I'm going to ask you about campaign fundraising in 1 second, Dave. Hang on 1 second. What, just going back to the Sheriff Ivey thing, and perhaps trying to influence some of these races by asking people to drop out. Has there been any sort of residual effect or rip from that? Here locally, politically, are people talking about it? Are they upset about it? Or or
Well,
is it just politics?
I think people are talking about it a lot, and there's people who will support the sheriff and his candidates no matter what, and there are other people who feel that the sheriff should not be involved in endorsing candidates, and especially judicial candidates who may have direct interaction with the sheriff's deputies who may be testifying at a trial, for example. So I think there's a mixed feeling about whether the sheriff should be endorsing candidates or not. But he's been endorsing candidates since he took office. I think he's been in office. This is his 10th year in office, and he's been doing that for a number of years. This is the first year where there's been allegations that he's tried to pressure people to get out of elections so that it would clear the way for his own favorite candidates to win. And we should say the sheriff has not commented on these allegations, either denying them or acknowledging that that's the case. So he's not said one way or the other if he's done this. But I think the three different candidates, all different offices and all pretty well respected in the community, had similar stories to tell, and they hadn't talked to each other beforehand. So these are three different stories that these candidates told that were kind of lined up with one another.
Right, and which leads us to what you began talking about a minute ago. So apparently, prosecutor Kimberly Musselman, she said that some of her campaign fundraising dried up after she refused the alleged offer by Sheriff Ivey to leave the race in exchange for some political favors down the road or something. Talk to me for a second, Dave, about like this huge disparity in campaign fundraising. Who were some of the big fundraisers, and what does that allow them to do? I imagine that if you didn't get a lot of money, you had to go door to door and sort of put in your own grassroots campaign out there, right?
Right. For example, we'll take Tom Goodson, who is leading in the District 2 County Commission race. So he's spent over $90,000 on the campaign, and the job pays about $58,000. So it's almost 2 years' salary that he's spent to win this office. And he's leading right now, as we said. And the other candidates in the race, Dave Nederstrand spent $39,000, Chris Hathaway spent $25,000, and Joseph Cholowa spent about $5,000. And Tom Goodson's spending $58,000 of it was for mailings, like things that he sent out to Republican voters, trying to convince them to vote for him. And so, whereas Tom Goodson spent a lot on mailers. For example, Chris Hathaway did more of a grassroots campaign where he went door to door for people, trying to convince individual voters to vote for him, attending events. So he didn't have as much money to spend, but he tried to have the one-on-one interaction with the public that would be voting in this primary.
I saw something new this year, Dave. I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but one or two of the candidates, I think Renee Torpy might be one of them. She's running for like a county judge seat. Had a big sign on a barge in the river. So as you went over the causeway, I think it was the O'Galley Causeway, you could see her sign on the water. I've just never seen that before. It was pretty cool.
Oh, no, I hadn't heard of that either, but it's a creative way to get the message out and be seen by a lot of people rather than hoping somebody drives by your sign on the side of the road to have it, in the water where, hundreds of people could see it at the same time, probably.
And these mailers, Dave, I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, I rarely trust anything I see on these mailers because they all seem so, either they're just talking badly about their opponent or they're making these allegations or claims that seem, far-fetched. What is your take on that?
Well, I think for some voters don't know that much about the candidates, and see the person's name pop up several times in their mail and maybe believe what they read. I mean, some of everything that's sent out is probably true, and some of it is maybe stretching the truth a little bit for some of these mailers. But the idea is for the candidate to like have a touch point for voters so that they recognize the name. Same with the thousands of signs you see on the main roads during the campaign season. People just want to, the candidates just want to get the name recognition, especially candidates who maybe haven't held office before or have held office but many years ago that people don't remember them, just to try and get the name. So when they get their ballot, they see that name and recognize, oh, I've seen that name before, I'll vote for that person.
Sure. Now, Dave, the seat, the county commission seat, vacated by Brian Loeb has been vacant since I believe April. How odd is it to have so many people in the county? I think it's about 20% without a elected leader, on the county commission representing them. I know that Sheriff Ivey tried to get Tom Goodson appointed, earlier, by the governor, but that didn't happen. How odd is that? And has it been effective? Have the needs been met, basically?
Well, it's a problem for especially some residents of that district, District 2, which like I said, goes from Cape Canaveral to Rockledge, across the rivers. And so those people have not had a vote in the county commission since April, and possibly won't have one till after November, because unless the governor can appoint somebody to that position, and in theory, he could appoint the person who wins the primary to that position, so that seat's filled earlier, but there's no indication that will happen. But now, so there's only 4 county commissioners, and the 5th district, which has over 100,000 residents in it, is no vote on the county commission. And there's a lot of issues affecting that area that they have no representative to go to say, hey, we'd like you to vote this way on this issue. So it is a problem. I mean, it's kind of unprecedented in recent times, where commission vacancy has occurred and then nobody has filled it for months at a time.
Yeah, which leads me to the following question, Dave, about our Democratic Party here in Brevard County. I was a little surprised that there were no candidates to put forward in the county races on the for our county commission, and also there has been no opposition to Randy Fine or Tyler Soroy, like state reps that are now going back to represent us in Tallahassee. They seem to focus more on the school board races, which are nonpartisan. Was that a strategy, or is it? I mean, what will it take for this party to get vital again in Brevard County?
Well, I think the party's strategy was to focus on the school board races. So these are, like you said, these are nonpartisan races, but they've become very partisan in the recent 2 cycles. So by nonpartisan, I mean that the candidate's political party affiliation does not appear on the ballot, but the candidates make it well known if they're Republicans or Democrats. So currently, the school board is made up of 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 1 NPA, no party affiliation voter, who is kind of an independent, and that's Misty Belford, who's running for re-election today. And one of the Democratic candidates is not seeking re-election. So we will, there's 2 seats that are not contested this year, 1 Republican, 1 Democrat. So we'd have as many as 4 Republicans or 3 Democrats and 1 NPA, depending on the outcome of the elections tonight. So I think the Democrats were kind of focusing on the school board and felt that some of the state legislature races in particular, where there were incumbents, you mentioned Tyler Soroy and Debbie Mayfield, who's a state senator also was unopposed.
That's right.
And Vlad Altman was unopposed this year as well. And I think they felt that it would be better to push their resources to the school board races, which are highly contested and a big focus this year in politics in general, where even Governor DeSantis is getting involved in the school board races, including one of the local races. So I think their strategy was to focus on the school board. And in November, we'll see them focusing on municipal races in the cities and towns of Brevard County, which is also a nonpartisan election, but is also becoming more partisan these days.
Excellent, Dave. Well, it looks like a few more precincts have been reporting, and I apologize to the viewers at home who see me looking. I'm not looking on my Nintendo Switch. I'm looking at the results on an iPad here and just refreshing. But Rob Feltner has a pretty commanding lead with about 15 of like 39 precincts reporting. He's at 53.76%, with like Senator Sullivan in second at 23.49%. And Tom Goodson remains at 42.6% with 6 precincts reporting out of 40, with Nedestrom and Hadaway close to each other at 23 and 24% basically in second and third. Wow. So and then the school board races, you mentioned, like Misty Belford, she's the NPA, right? She's
NPA, right?
And she's been the chair. She's losing right now with 11 precincts in out of like 37. But if Bailey Gallion is at the ready, I'd like to bring her in. She's our education reporter. And let's see. Hey, Bailey.
Hello.
How you doing? Welcome, and thanks
Pretty
for making
good.
yourself available. Just want to talk to you that with about 3 seats up for grabs, and these races are supposed to be nonpartisan. It's pretty clear, like Dave just said, where everybody stands.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just me, or are school boards the latest battleground for like the culture wars? Like just pitting the right versus the left.
Yeah, I would say that's absolutely accurate. And not just here, but elsewhere in the country as well. We've seen Moms for Liberty, which is a conservative organization that was founded here in Indian River. They have a nationwide presence now. And the Dems have been throwing a lot of support behind some candidates. And we've had one race in particular, Megan Wright versus Misty Belford. Ron DeSantis has endorsed Megan Wright. And meanwhile, as we just said, Misty Belford is an NPA. She's not officially Republican or Democrat, but she's been supported by the Democrats because they don't want to see Megan Wright elected. And it's become a huge battleground. It's probably like the school board races are probably some of the biggest races that we're seeing tonight.
Well, I'm glad it's not just happening in Brevard County, actually. So, although I guess I wish it wasn't happening anywhere, but you mentioned Misty Belford, and I sort of, she has been the school board chair for a few years, and it was during COVID, and it was during a time that's unprecedented. We've never had something like this in our lifetimes, and we had her on the forum, and she said she wouldn't go back and really change anything, but I think what really has hurt her politically is that she voted for the mask mandate for the kids. But now you were reporting all this. The numbers were going up in schools, right, with the students. So then after the mandate, they went down. Could you just talk about that a little bit? Or
yeah. So at the time this time last year in August, Jennifer Jenkins started at the school year, pushing very strongly for a mask mandate. And Cheryl McDougall was also in support of it. But Misty was not in support of it at the beginning of the school year until the cases really started rising and several staff members were actually in the hospital. And I think, some students were also in the hospital. So at that point, Misty then changed her position, and she was kind of the swing vote that allowed the mask mandate to take effect, which obviously drew a lot of heat from Republicans. And then the mask mandate stayed in place for 3 months until basically until vaccines became more widely available.
And Megan Wright, her opponent, you said she's with Moms for Liberty. Is that correct?
I don't know if she's directly affiliated with Moms for Liberty. She is endorsed by them.
Gotcha. Okay, because we had candidate forums, and she did not participate, so I'm not really sure where she stands. She is winning right now, pretty big. She's at almost 60%, and with 20 of the 37 precincts reporting. Another really good race is the Aaron Dunn, Courtney Lewis, Sean Overdorf, Jean Trent race. Now, I had heard that Jean Trent was the favorite in this, or he was favored. Right now, Aaron Dunn's winning at about 35%. Courtney Lewis at 26.5%. Jean Trent has 28.19%. Do you think some sort of balance like that is needed on the board if Aaron Dunn is able to hold on and win this? And she's leading with 19 of 34 precincts reporting right now.
Well, certainly if Megan Wright replaces Misty Belford, then Aaron Dunn would have the opportunity to kind of act as a counterbalance. And that would kind of keep the balance of the school board a little bit more down the middle. Even though Misty Belford isn't, she's not a Democrat. She, has sometimes voted. She's been the swing vote. So, if she's replaced by Megan Wright, that's going to shift the board to the right, and then Aaron Dunn would shift it back to the left, basically.
Right. Now, Katie Campbell is running against Kim Huff, and Kim Huff is part of the Parents for Safe
Families for Safe Schools,
right? Which is the group that is opposed to Moms for Liberty, right? They're basically
so they emerged. They emerged as like a pro-mask organization during the COVID-19 pandemic, and since then they've sort of expanded their platform to include stuff like gun safety, LGBT rights, and they've sort of worked against any sort of censorship in schools. So they're kind of like the left's answer to Moms for Liberty.
Now, you just mentioned the books and some of the things like that. What are some of the other issues that that you hear are being spoken about, or are important for the parents, students, and teachers right now?
So it's kind of an interesting time for the school board because there are a lot of really just regular practical issues that are still at the forefront of parents' minds that kind of a lot of people agree on. Everyone wants to see teachers paid more. Everyone wants to see more of the, more trade opportunities for students. Everyone wants to make sure that schools are safe. And then on the other hand, we have these very divisive issues like whether critical race theory is being taught in schools, whether schools are indoctrinating children to believe that white students are inferior or and then there's also we've seen a big issue lately in terms of transgender students' access to bathrooms. That's starting to become kind of a hot button issue.
Gotcha. And let's just take another look here real fast. Then we're going to bring in Ralph Chapoco, our county reporter, for a minute. Let's see here. See if there's any changes. And don't forget to keep checking FloridaToday.com for the election results and our coverage, our crack, coverage on this. Where are the school board? Where are they? Here they are. Sorry, here we go. Okay, so with 20%, with 20 precincts now reporting, Megan Wright is still at about 60% over Misty Belford. Aaron Dunn is at 35% with 19 precincts now reporting 34. Jean Trent at 28.19. That's the race that will go to a runoff, right? If the results that are here right now, and again with only 19 of 34 precincts reporting, Aaron Dunn would face off against Jean Trent in a runoff, because it's a nonpartisan race and you need 50%. To move ahead. Okay. Katie Campbell is holding on. It's a pretty tight race, but she's got 40. I'm sorry, she has like 54%, almost 55, and Kim Huff has 45.2%. So there you have it. Bailey, I want to thank you for joining me. I may have you back on, so don't go away too far. Okay, hang tight just in case. I want to bring in Ralph Chapoko if he's around.
How are you?
Let's see. Look, I just made you materialize, Ralph.
How are you?
I'm doing great, everybody. This is Ralph Chapoko. He's our county government reporter. And Ralph, you came to Florida today less than a year ago, correct?
I did. I got here at the end of January, and I've been from Arizona. I used to be at the Arizona Republic, and now I'm at Florida today covering politics.
And so you came at a perfect time. A lot happening with the county government. One of the things I want to ask you first is, only a few months into your job, Brian Lober resigns abruptly. Was that shocking? Was that as shocking for you as it was for me, and for it felt like everybody else?
It was, because going into this cycle, he actually had a pretty substantial advantage. The very fact that he was an incumbent already puts him in an advantage. But he actually raised a lot of money, north of $100,000. I believe it was $160,000. And on top of that, he just only had two candidates who were opposing him, two challengers. One was Joseph Chalawa, who's kind of at the back end of the results for this evening. But a political novice joined because he branded himself kind of in the Trump name, and wanted to kind of follow in his footsteps in his America First strategy, and wanted to bring that to Brevard County. And then obviously we have Dontavius Tademeo Smith, who's a non-party affiliated candidate who the winner of this race is going to face off in the general. So he was in a pretty envious position coming in, and the entire incident just changed in a matter of weeks with the revelations of his spending on his purchase cards. So,
and for whoever has not been following the case, he came under fire because of spending of his on his purchase cards, and an audit was initiated. The early reports was that the audit might come out in May, and then June. We're in August, and we haven't heard. Have you heard anything, Ralph, about the audit and what it may or may not show?
Yeah, we've been following that. Latest reports, probably towards the end of the summer is when it's going to come out. So let's look for it probably end of this month, sometime maybe up to the middle of next month is the latest reports that I'm hearing in terms of when this audit is. As far as what's in it, anyone's guess. Thus far, ultimately, this was an audit of Brian Lober mostly. And he still maintains that he has not done anything wrong. Or nothing illegal, at the very least, nothing illegal. And so we'll see how that bears out in this audit. He did play within the rules in terms of the money was allocated to him and approved by the County Board of Commissioners. And he did what was allowed in his view, based on the votes of his colleagues on the commission. So,
well, I have to tell you, when I ask my wife if I can go to the comic book shop, because I love comic books, and she tells me how much I have to spend, I usually try to spend that full amount. So there you have it. I don't know what that says about me, but I'm not buying the $5 comic if I can get the $100 comic. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's have a quick look at these results, Ralph, and see if there's any change. And again, to the viewers, I apologize if I'm looking down. I'll try to do it as briefly as I can. So Tom Goodson with 30 of the 40 precincts now reporting. Tom Goodson has 41.8%. He's in first with a pretty solid lead over Dave Netterstrom, 24.8%. Chris Hadaway third, 21.6%, and Joey Chalawa with 11.69. Any surprises there, Ralph, with those results so far?
I would have thought, going into this race, I could see how how hard, I mean, all the candidates worked hard, but I especially saw or took notice of Chris Hadaway and how he was out in the community and how he was talking to voters. So that 21%, I actually would have thought would have been more competitive by now. So that's a little bit of a surprising result. So is Netterstrom. He pretty much in the same vein as, there are a lot of similarities between Netterstrom and Hadaway. So I guess in some sense, I'm not surprised that it got probably equal proportion of the vote.
Yeah, that's a good point. We had the forums, and Tom Goodson did not participate in the forum, but we had Chalawa, Hadaway, and Netterstrom. And, I was kind of impressed by all three, to be honest with you. And, some had experience, some had new ideas, some had moxie and integrity. And, it just, it's a good race. It's unfortunate that, like, Tom Goodson did not participate, although judging by these results, I guess he didn't have to. Let's look at District 4 for a second here, Ralph. We've got Rob Feltner is just kind of running away with this with 29 of like 39 precincts in. He's at almost 55%, and the closest is Sandra Sullivan behind him with 23%. So I mean that's also a like Sheriff Ivey backed candidate. That's not a real surprise, right?
No, I mean, Feltner was probably was the earliest candidate to actually enter the race. So he actually had an advantage in terms of time, and he had the advantage in terms of resources. And he had the advantage in terms of name recognition too. He's been in politics. He's worked the local scene and as a political consultant for various candidates. So he understood the game. He had the resources to back up what he wanted to do. And he had several endorsements of kind of name recognized Republicans within this county. I mean, among them, sheriff is one of them. Definitely that's an advantage. But also he had some on the commission who supported him, and a lot of state representatives who actually publicly endorsed him on his website. So in some sense, it's really not a surprise.
And outgoing county commissioner Kurt Smith also endorsed him, correct?
He did. Worked to close the primary as well, hoping that would favor Rob Feltner.
Wow. And speaking of Smith, he is termed out. And I know that you're only here for 8 or 9 months so far. But what do you know about his legacy and what he leaves behind as a county commissioner?
Traditional kind of Republican. Conservative values, which was what you'd expect in this kind of county, meshed well with his colleagues on the commission. I think the one thing that stood out was his proposal. Well, there was two actually, but the latest one was his proposal to extend term limits by another term. Right now, it's capped at 8 years. They're allowed to go another term should you step down, but he actually wanted to extend it to 12 by another term. It was eventually beaten back, but that was one thing that he wanted to do.
And who can blame him, right? I mean, his last year, you want to stay. If you like, you want to stay.
Yeah, he did say it wasn't for him; it was for future commissioners. But yes, there is a tendency to want to stay in office if you're an incumbent.
Right. Wow. Now, I'm sorry that I had to cut you off, Ralph. Are there what are some of the bigger issues that maybe that we haven't spoken about here tonight that like the county commission is going to be facing in the next few months, years, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, some of the candidates highlighted a few of them, but I think it's really going to be affordable housing. Right now, rent and housing prices have just increased to a level that is really unsustainable for many residents here. And so the question is, how is the county going to handle that? And the fact that they actually had testimonials from people who came in to talk specifically about their problem with affordable housing, I think had some move in terms of motivating the commissioners to handle that issue. There's some lawsuits with some ordinances that are passed on the commission, particularly related to people on the sex offender registry list, and whether or not, and rules extending the restrictions on where they can go. There's also kind of a lawsuit with the town of Malabar regarding an endangered land dispute that they're engaged in. So some
EELS,
conflict
right?
with
It's the EELS program,
what's
right?
called the the EELS program, essentially,
Yeah,
the Endangered
yeah.
Lands Program. So there'll be those types of issues. How they handle it will kind of depend on who's on the commission. But based on the results now, it doesn't look like there's going to be a huge difference. There is the lagoon. Sandra Sullivan is a candidate for District 4, has been an advocate has been advocating for the lagoon and wanted to see steps for increased oversight on that. But with the results right now, it looks like it's going to be more of the same for.
Yeah. Now,
For the
speaking
lagoon.
of the lagoon, is there enough transparency with what's happening with the lagoon and where the money's going, or
That's what some of the
It's a mixed
candidates. Yeah, that's what some of the candidates are saying, particularly Sullivan, a little bit, and to a smaller extent Hadaway, but they seem to say that saying that there's just not enough oversight in terms of audits, in terms of transparency, in terms of who's getting contracts out of the fund that have sales tax meant to clean up the lagoon. So they've particularly Sullivan's been making a lot of noise about that particular issue. So we'll see what happens, right? We'll see if anything changes with respect to how that oversight committee operates and whether or not the commission will do anything about it.
Absolutely. Well, Ralph, you are doing a great job. You've already ingrained yourself into Brevard County politics, and I appreciate your time here tonight. Is Dave Burns still around? If he is, I'd love to talk to him. Oh, hey, Dave. I think you're on mute, Dave. So just unmute yourself there. I just want to, and I know that I'm like putting you on the spot here, Dave, because we did not talk about this but it looks like there's a pretty good race shaping up in the Democratic primary for Congress. Joanne Terry, well, actually, she is now pulling away a little bit. She's at like 53%. Danelle Dodge is at almost like 47%. It was a little closer a little bit ago. That's with 140 out of 171 precincts. You know, Dave, you've been here for a while. I've been here for a while at this paper. They're going to have to face, Bill Posey.
Right.
And I mean, can you see somebody unseating Posey at this point? What would it take, you think?
Well, it would be pretty difficult because the district is heavily Republican. And also the numbers we're looking at are Brevard County totals only. So there's also Indian River counties in that district.
Correct, yes.
And a small part of Orange County. So the numbers we're looking at are Brevard County figures, not the whole district. But in any case, Bill Posey, I believe, has completed his 7th term in office, 2-year terms. And he's since he's been elected for the first time, he hasn't had a really super close election after that. And he's pretty well established in the community. So whoever wins this Democratic primary will have a tough going after trying to unseat the incumbent Bill Posey. And also he's got a large amount of money available for the general election. And remember, these two candidates had to spend most of their money that they've raised on the primary, so that they'll have to raise some more money to go against Bill Posey from now through November. So it's definitely a difficult challenge to beat an incumbent, especially one who's in the party where a majority of voters in the district are in that Republican Party. So
Right.
It will be a tough effort, but I'm sure the candidate who wins the primary will make a strong effort to be competitive in that race.
And either Ralph or Dave can answer this. I'm not sure, but the school district race where you need the 50% because there's more than 2 candidates, does that hold true for the judicial races as well? Because
it does. In 2 of the 3 judicial races, there's only 2 candidates, so one will get more than 50%. But in a 3rd race, there's 3 candidates, and the winner will need to have more than 50% of the vote. Otherwise, the top 2 finishers will go into a runoff election on November 8th.
and that's probably is going to happen because with 157 of 171 precincts for County Judge Group 4, Renee Torpy is leading at 39.97%, and Kimberly Musselman, the prosecutor who claimed that that Wayne Ivey tried to pressure her to not run, is at 36.6%. So that's a very tight race, but I don't see either of them, topping 50 unless something major happens in the last few precincts that are yet to report. Ralph, let's take a look at the county again and see what the latest results are. Okay, so for District 4, we got like 36 out of like 39% in Ralph, and Rob Feltner is running away with it at like 55%, basically. Sandra Sullivan's at 23% now, a little bit less than that. And for District 2, Tom Dixon with 32 of the 40, he has a pretty solid lead as well at almost 42%, which he's kind of held all throughout the early voting, whatever, and the mail ballots. He's been at 42% all night. Chris Hadaway and Dave Netterstrom, as you said, Ralph, I think it was, may have canceled each other out in this race, with Netterstrom right now at 24.3 and Hadaway at 21.6. So it looks like there's not going to be much change, Ralph, on the county commission.
Money matters. So do resources. They matter. I believe it was Dave who highlighted the fact that Goodson and Feltner had raised the most money and spent a lot of money. So I think that's been the undercurrent in this race, is that how much. I was wondering, I was trying to see where this would fall, whether what would be more important, getting out and speaking with voters, or money and resources, being able to get your name out there through mailers and other types of avenues would matter. And it looks like money's holding out tonight.
Yeah, wow. And I should mention the other judicial races. Judge Kelly Ingram, an incumbent, is leading over David Baker. She's got 64% with 157 out of 171 precincts in. And other race is a circuit judge race, which is us at 7. We only have Brevard numbers, which so with the Brevard numbers, incumbent chief judge Jessica Reichstadler is at almost 60%, and her challenger John Mannion is at almost 41. But like I said, that with like that race, the circuit, the 18th judicial circuit is Brevard and Seminole counties. So we don't know yet who's winning there in Seminole and what that will do. It's a Seminole seat, and that's where they work. So that's that. Well, guys, it looks like we have some pretty clear results. Any sort of last words that you want to impart, or any observations that you want to leave our viewers with? And it's okay if you don't.
I think one thing that I wanted to mention is how much the school board elections have really come to the forefront in this election cycle. And you could see the races were pretty competitive in all 3 school districts. And in the District 2 of the school board, it looks like we'll have a runoff, and the top 3 candidates are very close to one another. Right now, Aaron Dunn has 34%, and Gene Trent has about 30%, and Courtney Lewis has about 26.5%. So the top 2 of those 3 will go into runoff election. And, the other 2 races are a little farther apart, but we saw in this cycle that very intense competition in the school board, and very distinct differences, as Bailey mentioned earlier, between a lot of the candidates, different viewpoints on some key issues.
Yeah, and you had mentioned a like slight change, and it looks like Megan Wright she has a resounding lead over Misty Belford, the incumbent NPA, who I had said earlier was the school board chair for these last few years, and she sort of got in trouble politically, locally here by voting for the mask mandate, which resulted in lower numbers of COVID. But I don't know. What can you do? That's it looks like a lot of these races are pretty much done and dusted. Obviously, we're not going to call them till there's 100% in. But Ralph, Dave, and also Bailey Gallion, I really want to thank all three of you. Hey, Bailey. Well, I'll offer you, Bailey. Any last words here on any observations on these results? Or any surprises?
I would say that I'm surprised that the race between Misty and Megan Wright isn't closer. I've been saying that I thought that it could go either way, but I wasn't expecting. I know right now it looks like Megan Wright has about 60% of the vote. So obviously that's a pretty strong lead. So I think that's very interesting.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So it looks like Katie Campbell's going to hold on to her seat, 23 out of 23 reporting, and she's at like 57.4%. Kim Huff had 42.5%. And as like Dave said, we're going to have a runoff probably between Erin Dunn and either Jean Trent or Courtney Lewis. Right now, it would be Jean Trent with 27 of the 34 precincts. Well, we appreciate your expertise, your hard work out there. Thank you so much. I know you guys have stories to write, so I will let you go. And I want to thank the viewers for tuning in. Please go to floridatoday.com for all the results, all the stories, and everything else that you need to know about what's happening in your home. I'm John Torres, engagement editor of Florida Today, signing off. Thank you.